Hello and welcome to Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavin Masters. And to start off today, let's send it over to Mr. Barrett.
Good evening, morning, night, whatever it is, Eagle Nation. Glad to be filming again with Mr. Plavin Masters here. Hope you guys are staying safe, healthy, and happy. Lots going on in our world right now between the virus, the election, everyday school activities. So stay hopeful, be a man with hope to bring, and we will make it through this. So, WPM, let's talk Bible facts.
Let's talk Bible facts.
Last week, you swung by my room and you prompted the idea, the notion of the Bible and science.
Yes.
Or perhaps science in the Bible versus science, the science for the Bible. There's so many different avenues we could pursue. But the first thing I guess I want to say is that it's not a closed conversation. It's not an either or, but rather a both and. While the Bible's not a scientific book, it does not mean that the Bible and science need to be enemies in any way. Anything you want to start off with? Because I know you seemed especially intrigued by this topic the other day.
Yeah, I was interested by the fact that in a theology class, we were going over the idea that animals within themselves don't have souls and can't free think. And I thought that was interesting because, to be perfectly honest, there's more evidence to refute that than to agree with it. Like, for instance, dolphins, perhaps. They can tell the difference between friendly relationships and intimate relationships and non-intimate relationships. In addition to this, they're the only other creatures on the planet that show human-like activities such as getting high. And let me elaborate on this a little bit. I mean, in a way that, like humans do, they inflate pufferfish and bounce them around, sort of like humans do a joint. So
That's incredible.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because that when I brought that up in theology class, it did not get the same reaction.
Was it more so stares?
Yeah, it was just stares and dropped jaws, pretty much. Yeah, so there's more evidence to believe that humans and animals have similar brains because, to be perfectly honest, we don't understand our own consciousness. So how, in essence, can we understand the consciousness of other creatures around us?
For those who can't see, which is the entire audience, I'm nodding my head in agreement and closing my eyes at that deep truth that William just presented. I think most students at St. Ed's have done the Johari window activity. It's like a Punnett square. Do you have one with you?
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought you were about to grab one
I'm
from
just
your
moving
backpack.
this.
Oh, he's just moving it. Darn it. But yeah, there's 4 different corners. It's like a Punnett square. That was my phone. And it involves things that you know about yourself and things that you don't know about yourself and things that others know about you and things that others don't know about you. So you're right on to say, how could we judge the consciousness of other living beings if we ourselves are not in complete understanding of our own? There's something deeply true about that. And I look at the creation story and I think of God's creation, not just of Adam and Eve or man and woman, but of all living things in the Garden of Eden and of all living things on the earth, depending which story from Genesis you're reading. And I love to think, I love to hold it true that God's own essence is in those things. I like to think that all things of this creation, to quote the poet Gerard Manley Hopkins, the world is charged with the grandeur of God. Everything, like getting into Bible and science, like an atom that's made of a proton, neutron, and electron with different charges, the whole world is in some way charged with God's own presence. And I believe that creation, or the objects or the subjects of creation, are to return to their creator. So who knows? I would like to think that all things in this world have a divine charge and a divine presence, and that animals do have souls. Zangas, are you going to be reviewing pufferfish today by chance?
No.
Okay.
No. We don't have that. We don't have the resources.
Phew. Yeah, we don't have the resources.
The resources, yes.
Beyond our scope.
And for those listening, we'd be eating the pufferfish, not, passing the pufferfish, as the dolphins like to do.
Passing the puffer.
Yeah.
Maybe I could convince the film department into getting a pufferfish for consumption. I talked him into
Yeah.
the pizza bracket.
Oh, that's right.
If we can do that, then I'm sure that I don't know how much pufferfish costs, but I don't know if that would fall within my realm of expertise, to be honest. So I'm not even really comfortable in passing judgment on pufferfish.
Okay, I'm down with that.
guess,
I like
yeah.
your comparison, though. If we can do a pizza bracket,
Yeah, why not?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I don't know if I'd have the heart to slay a pufferfish, though, for consumption. I'd leave that up to you, Zangas. What other? I remember I had another thing in mind. Mr. Krosniak loves to do an assignment with faith and comparing faith to the scientific method. Faith, I think at base level, is what you believe in. But if you've taken a freshman theology course, and hopefully other theology courses too, you know that faith is much more, and it's much more complex. It's more of a web than it is a belief system. Now, belief is surely part of that web, but faith involves seeking and experimenting and refining and taking account for what you've experimented on and then drawing conclusions based on your experience. So Mr. Krosniak wrote this assignment himself. I don't know if either of you had ever done this assignment, but he has students break down each part of the scientific method and say and write about how the journey of faith might be a similar account.
Yeah, I think I do remember that from last year, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. It sounds familiar. I think we got offhand and talked about Stephen Hawking for a little bit. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it just sticks in my memory, I guess.
Was that in person or remote?
That was in person. It was like a week before we went remote.
Oh,
I
no
think.
way.
Yeah.
So
All
that
the
was your
interesting
lasting
stuff
taste.
happened right before we went remote.
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
Things were boiling to an apex, and then the ride was turned off.
Yeah. So, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
this is pretty interesting that we talk about this because I remember a part of this assignment where he mentioned the level of holy consciousness, and we mentioned this idea of human consciousness and animal consciousness, but Mr. Krosniak had mentioned this idea of holy consciousness, and it really struck me because I always thought that all theologians kind of had the same amount of, not experience, but intelligence and idealism on the same subject, and not really an array of this. And it wasn't until he showed me this graph of like 8 different ideals of theology, I believe it was, and I bet he still has it in his room. It's all about your intelligence and your belief and understanding of how God works. And on the top tier, there's only one name, and that name is Jesus. And as you continue down, you get like the Pope and the bishops and your everyday theology experts, And it just really struck me that there's a hierarchy to this understanding almost. And we put a hierarchy on it when we all have access to the same knowledge, unless there's some hidden library somewhere that we don't know about. We all have access to the same knowledge. And it's pretty interesting how humans naturally sway towards a hierarchy of sorts.
Yeah. When in the gospel itself, Jesus encourages his apostles to go and do and be just like him. And remember, these apostles are really a group of illiterate nobodies. If anything, they're kind of like suspicious beings in the region of the empire that Jesus dwells in. So maybe we don't pay attention as much to the hierarchy. For all of us are empowered to come to know the God who reveals himself to us in our own time and place. I remember in college taking that hierarchy and putting it into a circle instead, where Jesus would be at the center of the circle. And then each member of that hierarchy would have a position moving outward from that circle. And there would be no necessarily restricted lines to differentiate them. But we're all in the same realm, the same circle. We all have different roles in that circle, but all of us can come to know who is at the center of the circle? Jesus himself. And if we want to get really wild, let's think about Jesus' own consciousness. As I've grown older, I've begun to wrestle with whether or not Jesus knew at the age of 14, or my age, 28, or your age, 16 or 17 or 15, however old you are, if he was the Messiah, Maybe he knew it, but how did he make sense of it when he was the equivalent of a sophomore in high school or a 28-year-old man like me? So I think that Jesus himself had to do a lot of grappling and determining and investigating to figure out his own sense of being as a human being and a divine being at the same time. Things are much more mysterious, I think, than they are black and white.
Yeah, absolutely. More like shades of gray,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to say what I was thinking.
So this is kind of an interesting way to take cool Bible facts.
Yeah.
This is something to chew on for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we can pick it up next time. My Old Testament professor in college was a professor, an author, and a biblical archaeologist.
Whoa.
So he'd go on digs in the Mediterranean world, in the Middle East, and write journals on findings of other archaeologists. So maybe I'll pull out the old college textbooks and try to get more on biblical archaeology for next episode.
All right, cool.
Amen,
We'll look
amen.
forward to that.
Yeah.
So, Zangas, let's dive right in here.
Absolutely.
So, you are the host of the one, the only, St. Ed's historically famous Zangas food review.
Mm-hmm.
So, what inspired you to start this review?
Just kind of like sitting around at the lunch table and like comparing reactions to various items from the calf, right? Thinking about like the daily specials they would release was the first thing that I really ever tried to look at critically, and I was fresh off of watching a whole bunch of Report of the Week review bra, as he is sometimes known, just like the night before, and he describes sometimes something called like the need to review something, to like break it down critically and kind of examine what makes it tick. Is this good? What is this bad? What are the good and bad parts of it? So I kind of snapped a picture of the buffalo chicken sandwich I was eating, whatever it may have been, and said, "Here's what I think of this sandwich," and broke it down cleanly, and I posted it to my Snapchat story, and people were like, "Okay, I could dig this." So I did that for like the next 6 months on various things that I consumed, and then the next year, the next fall, Miss Munnell, my film teacher, said to approach her with any ideas for SCTV segments for the SCTV reboot, and my editor, Miles Kaufman, editor and good friend, was like, "Oh, Nick Zangas food review." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know." And then I slept on it, and I was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that." So I kind of took a love of food that had been passed on from my father to me from childhood, and like started approaching things in the calf and local foods critically.
Right. So this genius idea almost stemmed from friends and family inspiring you to go after this love and passion that you have.
Yeah.
So is there a person in particular who had maybe the most influence in the creation of this?
I think that there's a lot of ways to approach that question. You've got my parents for giving me kind of this propensity to like think deeply about like food, the quality of the food, in multiple senses of the word, and then because I think that they've raised me to think like about, I know, kind of restating myself, but like kind of like examine food, I think is a good word for it. And then in addition, there's people like Miles Kaufman, who really like drove me to the point of taking it beyond just like screwing around on social media, joking around about like, check out the new Mountain Dew flavor, it's pretty good, and taking it beyond that to like something that's produced and like beyond just like kind of like wacky funny on my social media to like are we trying to do sketch comedy now? There were some points we were asking ourselves, and I think it's good. There's a lot of people who have like put things into the Nick Zangas food review that I could not.
Yeah, so your food review. So how do you decide what to include and what to exclude in the review of it?
I just kind of like food-wise, making decisions on what to review is based on like a combination of, are there any limited time offerings from popular fast food? What's in the calf right now? Is there anything that's striking me particularly at the moment? It's all very in the moment how we plan and produce things. We're filming an episode tomorrow, and I picked what I'm going to review like yesterday afternoon, and
Nice.
I haven't yet eaten that thing. So this afternoon, after I leave this, I'm gonna go pick it up. I'm gonna pick up two. I'm gonna eat one. Gonna show the other. Keep the other as a prop. So it all happens very in the moment. I think that's like a defining factor, but like just generally the idea of like the Nick Zangas food review and how we approach things is kind of defined. I defined it over the summer for myself as like an examination of pop food. Like we have pop culture and pop science, just as more general like popular approaches to like occasionally more academic things, and just like bringing it down to like what does the average person interact with. Kind of similar to like Andy Warhol had kind of like is like somebody who I'm kind of borrowing ideas from in this, except instead of Andy Warhol having his chicken noodle soup can, I have Mountain Dew Baja Blast nacho fries.
Yeah. So is there a favorite place that you go for fast food? Is there a place that you really love more than other places, I guess?
I'm a big fan of Taco Bell just because of like brand innovation, as I may have made clear in my past answers. But I could really go for anything. There's no one. I'm not a very picky eater. I think that I'm discerning and critical when I eat food, but not picky. So like, taking a look at any one individual place, I think would be limiting almost.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe themselves in that way. Not picky, and yet really intricate in their desire and breaking down of food. That's kind of interesting. So you say you're not picky, but you must have a favorite dish of sorts.
Personally, I think that the idea of having a favorite food is dangerous because different foods can be prepared in different ways, and like there's like good pizza and bad pizza, right? So saying that your favorite food is pizza, I think is a bit of a cop-out answer, to be honest. Like I've had like favorite individual meals. Like one of the things that drove me to make the food review is when I was in like 6th or 7th grade, my dad, while we were on vacation in San Antonio, Texas, made sure that we took a day in Austin because we wanted to try this place called Franklin's Barbecue. The deal with Franklin's Barbecue is that you need to like wait out in front for like 8 hours to ensure you get a slice of the brisket.
Whoa.
And this is like the greatest brisket I've ever had, right? So it's totally worth the 8 hours because it's like the quality and like the tenderness and the spice, like the rub that they use is like nothing you've ever had before.
It's puffer fish.
Yeah, puffer fish.
Puffer fish.
So I would say that like rather than examining like foods like as like a dish, to like stop thinking of it that way and rather as like individual meals.
Wow. I honestly have never heard anyone examine food like that before. You are a true connoisseur, my guy. Wow.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So,
Ratatouille.
yeah. So Mr. Barrett had mentioned pufferfish. Have you ever had pufferfish before?
No,
No?
I think I'd like to though.
Yeah. Interesting ideal. God creates this creature that has natural poison to defend itself, and humans decide, let's eat this thing that we're clearly not supposed to eat.
Do humans actually eat it?
Yes. Oh, there is like a full course in, I believe it's Japan, and you have to train for like 2-3 years on how to like cut out certain parts of the poison. And
Yikes.
I've never heard of this. I heard of it like a year ago, and I'm like, why do people do this? It's beyond me.
I'd
It's
rather have
interesting,
Taco
though.
Bell.
Yes, I'd
all
much
the
rather have
time.
Taco
Yeah.
Bell.
Okay, Zangus, do you have a least favorite food?
Not really, just by like the same concept. As far as like individual meals that I really dislike, a few summers ago, I decided I was going to order the largest, most expensive possible Subway sandwich, and that was a miserable decision. I hated that. That was the worst.
Oh,
no.
God.
For your wallet, for your taste buds.
Yeah, I just had a whole bunch of Subway gift cards laying around because I don't go to Subway very often because I have a distaste for Subway. And so what's a man to do with like $70 of Subway other than push the limits?
It's a great take.
That is
right there.
legendary. Oh my goodness. I've had Subway like 2 times. Once before I went vegan and like once after. And the time before I went vegan, I got lettuce and cheese on there. The time after, I kid you not, I had bread stuffed with cookies. They will make it. They will make it for you. I literally had
Wow.
a sandwich stuffed with cookies and lettuce.
I think we got to review that.
Yes,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
do that.
I know a lot of freshmen who would love that meal.
Oh, Lord. It was terrible.
Yikes.
So to get back on SCTV, what do you guys decide to include? Like, how do you discern the good from the bad?
Well, last year we had just the right amount of like segment space where if you took the initiative to like come up with an idea and write a script and bring it to fruition and produce it and kind of create a finished product, there was usually like space in SCTV to put it on. This year we're not really sure how it's going to shake out. So usually we just like we talk in meetings about like ideas and like refine the ideas, and from those refined ideas, it's not that we like veto them, it's that whoever has the idea has to like make it, bring it to a final product. And we've got about enough time to like get all these finished products into the final cut. So it's just the right size right now, I think.
Cool. So that's an interesting thing. It kind of works out perfectly for you guys. So was the food review just a spur of the moment kind of thing, or were you debating other things to include on SCTV?
SCTV was something that I kind of knew I wanted to participate in. I just needed a segment, and so Miles, who I work with on the food review, kind of threw out this idea, and it stuck in my head, and I was like, let's run with this. Let's do this. I have tried to produce one other segment called Membean Showdown, in which we have teachers go head to head in Membean matches to see who has the best vocabulary, or rather, who can do Membean the best. Because I think that those are two kind of different stats, if you will. But there's a lot of logistics in that, because the way that I had written it, that's like a 3, 4, 5, 6 camera setup, which is a lot.
Huh.
Yeah.
And it's just the amount of hands on deck that would be needed, and like technical requirements of that show, as well as like how much content we would have to edit down into like a segment no longer than a minute and a half. It was just a lot of work, and we were almost ready to shoot, and then the coronavirus happened.
Oh.
Now it's like we've lost some momentum. I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. If I was on that, I'd lose in the first 2 minutes. Oh my God, I'm terrible at it.
I got to crack out my dictionary.
Yeah. So before we get going here, is there anyone you'd like to shout out in particular?
I've talked about how Miles Kaufman makes the show what it is, because he edits the show. He comes up with a lot of the general like ideas that are represented on the show, as far as like visuals, and a lot of the comedy on the show is what he comes up with. And it just wouldn't be the same without him. I don't get enough chances to like make sure he's appreciated. Also, Miss Munnell has put up with a lot as far as the Nick Zangas food review, especially with like just like staying after school and being there and making sure that it all gets done. It's been a lot of help, so I appreciate those people.
Awesome. Yeah. It's important to have people around you that you trust and can help make things happen, you know?
Of course.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah,
This is great.
absolutely.
Could I ask one last question?
Oh, of course.
You're graduating this year, right, Nick Zangas?
Oh yeah.
So I think that this food review segment should still bear your name even after you graduate.
Yes.
That would be great. My brother is the rightful heir to the food review.
Oh, that's right.
It's his to do what he wants with it.
And he's a sophomore now.
He's a sophomore now. If he says I don't want to do the food review, that's fine. I'll find someone else to do it, I'm sure. But
It'll still be called the Nick Zangas Food Review.
Yes.
I mean, I guess if you want to call it the Nick Zangas food review, I wouldn't be offended if you took my name out of it.
No, you got to keep your name.
I think
it's
we're gonna
legendary.
keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Come on
That's
now.
all right. I could work
Yeah,
with that too.
it rolls off the tongue.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Zangas, you're a legend
Thank you.
and a true food connoisseur.
Wow, thank you.
This has been Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavin Masters, signing off.